Hey everybody, welcome back to Retaining Purpose, a podcast about staying anchored to what matters most, especially when the pace of life and leadership picks up. I'm your host, Randy Volk. Today's guest is a thoughtful leader, experienced engineer, and committed mentor. Jennifer Massig, founder and CEO of Magna Engineering. Known for her ability to combine technical expertise with a strong sense of purpose, Jennifer has built a company that values culture, collaboration, and community impact. In today's conversation, we will explore how she has shaped her business, grown a strong team, and continues to invest in the next generation of leaders. Jennifer Massig, thank you for joining me today on Retaining Purpose.
Awesome. Thank you, Randy, for having me.
Absolutely. So, Jen, you and I first met back in April at CTech West out in Banff, and I got to know you a little bit then. You were my mentor. And hopefully today we can expand on that a little bit and learn a little bit more about who Jen is, the business you've built, and what the future looks like for Jen and Magna Engineering.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah. So let's just start with a quick little version of who is Jen and how did you end up where you are today?
Great. Thanks, Randy. This question's always a fun one because I'm like, well, who's asking the question? And I'm thinking of how we met. So I'm going to talk mostly about my entrepreneur journey, but I can't kind of separate the entrepreneur journey from my family journey. So really what got me here today, I trained as an engineer, took engineering at the University of Calgary a very long time ago, got myself into the corporate world and right away realized like, this is not for Jennifer. And at the same time, I was starting to build a family. A couple years in, kind of unenamored with the corporate world and what that looks like for engineers. You know, we went into engineering to create, and that's not really what we do as consulting engineers once we get out. And my family put me in a situation where I found myself pregnant, two-year-old at home, and no job, no husband. So I decided to take the opportunity to get out of the corporate side. I made some family conversations with my support system. And I started doing a little on the side at the same time of selling children's books and everything I could do in between to keep money flowing in. During that time, I actually put my hand up to run as a municipal councillor in the small community that I live in. So did that for a couple years while the girls were growing up. And then when my youngest got into grade 1, which kind of worked over that 5-year period, I decided that between the things I'd learned in the political environment and some of the frustrations I'd had with what engineers were expected to be doing in the corporate world, that I could do something better and maybe I would try that. So that's when Magna Engineering was born. And it was originally started out to be just a liaison. Communities were going to hire me. I was going to help them to speak engineering. And then I was going to help these communities speak community to the engineers that they had hired. And within a couple years, realized that some of the really exciting, innovative, sustainable solutions that communities were looking for maybe weren't being offered by the traditional engineering firm. And Magna decided, well, let's hire a team, build a culture, and go out there and do all the things us engineers wanted to do, which was create and save the world. So that's really the very beginning of Magna Engineering Services. And now 40 staff later,
Wow.
Going to be 10 years next year. It's been exciting, primarily doing treatment wetlands and nature-based solutions for communities
Sure.
in Western Canada. It's been fun.
That is awesome. And, you know, that was one of the things that really intrigued me about you was that little journey that I learned about back in April was to go from, you know, the corporate engineering world, yeah, which I'm also familiar with, not as an engineer, but in dealing with engineers. But then also to end up on the political side of the spectrum and to be able to take those experiences from both and then go, okay, well, how am I going to use those to shape not only who I am, but a company that can go into the future? I didn't actually know that you were just going to be the liaison, because that's interesting because there are, yeah. You are absolutely right that community speaking engineer and engineer speaking community is a huge gap and you know is incredibly difficult to bridge. So that is really, really interesting. What does Magna Engineering, 10 years old now, yeah, into the wetland side of things? You're working across Western Canada. You have 40 people now. What did Magna look like 10 years ago? Was it Jen?
Yes. And, for every business leader's journey, you hit all these forks in the road. Will I have my own employees? Will I have contract employees? Will I be a sub to somebody else? Will I prime contracts, right? Who are my clients? And am I more of a collaborator than a lead? And I think when you asked me about where I started, it was going to be me, and I was going to find other people that wanted to be contractors. So we all kind of had our own small businesses, and that's how we would work. And it would be more flexibility, what I thought was going to be a little more agile. And what I found within a couple of years is that there was a certain culture that I wanted to kind of exist among the people that I was working with. And the only real way to do that was by, for me, building a team. Part of that comes from the idea that our culture is fairly unique. Randy, I know we've spoken about it before, but we're a 4-day work week. We are hybrid model, so some in office, some out office. We have 4 days a week where we're 6 hours together, Monday to Thursday, and the rest of it is up to the employee about what serves them best. And we want to support any type of work or family environment, which means we wanted to create something that was supportive for stay-at-home moms or single people or married people or any of those things in between, 18-year-olds starting out or people at the end of their career coming to help us out. So that creative culture model really needed to be a team of employees. So,
and when you get into that creative mindset, that, it, number one, super challenging, doesn't exist in a lot of spaces. And did you find it challenging to find people that aligned with that as you were building the team out? Because I think a lot of people, especially in our industries, they're just used to, I work Monday to Friday, or even amplify that, I work with the contractor works, right? And that can be hugely challenging. So was it easier to find staff because of this different approach you were taking?
Yes and no is the correct answer to that question. Finding staff that are excited about doing that type of work, getting into, everyone loves a 4-day work week. However, one of the things that we also do in that culture is I have really high expectations on the team. So two-sided, both on the psychological safety side and the ability to be accountable for your own engineering. And that sounds like something that, doesn't everybody want to do that? But I'm hiring out of a very conservative consulting engineering market where engineers aren't really used to having to take accountability for all their decisions. They're used to relying on the existing standards and regulations. And at Magna, we're learning those so that we can adjust them to the intention we need them for today, which means you're kind of walking into a world of doing things and creating things that nobody's done before you. And for consulting engineers, that can be really terrifying. So I can find lots of people that want to work at Magna, but we spend a lot of time getting to know hires. We end up doing a lot of interviews, kind of get to know more fit interviews. So that's the hard part about it.
Well, and you said something in there with psychological safety, right? That's something that we've really brought in here at Grassroots as well. And are you familiar with Amy Edmondson? If you aren't, you should look her up. Harvard professor. She actually she writes on psychological safety, almost exactly what you just talked about. Yeah. And it's such an interesting thing because, often nowadays you hear psychological safety and people just think, well, a safe workspace, I want to be who I am. I want to be respected for that. This is more so psychological safety in the sense that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think this is what you were talking about. The freedom to make decisions, creative decisions, and the freedom and safety from making wrong decisions. Right? Yeah. And being able to learn from those. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is so foreign in so many areas.
It really is. And I would build on that to say, we joke, I tell people, you're going to see crying at work. They're like, what? And I'm like, people are bringing themselves, they're being themselves, but we're all accountable also. So people know to handle yourself professionally, but we're also here to bring our true selves because we really, really believe that curiosity and creativity is found in that space of being able to be your most productive self, taking accountability, like you said, Randy, being able to make decisions and being able to make mistakes.
Right. Yeah. And then within that, being accountable for a mistake, right? Yeah. But knowing when you make that mistake, you're not going to be crushed by your supervisor or the owner or anything else. In fact, it's going to be celebrated that, hey, we tried something, it didn't work. What can we take away from it? And that's the huge thing. That's where you see that really interesting growth that starts to take place. So with bringing that culture in, what have you done intentionally, I guess? Like, what does it look like within Magna? You're at 40 people. That's not a small number anymore, right? And all of a sudden, it's one thing to manage 10 people to align with the cultural vision and values of an organization. It gets a lot harder when you're at 40, especially when you do probably have some remote work. You're the visionary. You're not necessarily pulling puppet strings as much as you used to. How are you managing that?
Probably the biggest thing is that we never, I'm going to say this, never ever sacrifice our culture, our values. And the reason I hesitate for a moment is when you're like 110% into a project, which means it was due a week ago, budget's gone, we're not quite done, everyone's working through the weekend. It is really hard in those moments to still protect your culture and your values. And we have made it of our utmost importance and our highest priority to protect them in those moments. So we will debrief, we will talk around the idea that we don't pull you away from your families. If we have to ask a client or move a date, then we will. But a lot of times the team is like, no, I want to finish this. I can make arrangements, but next week I'm taking 3 extra days off, and we're like, great, sounds great. And that's accountability for your time. You got here, that's why we're in this situation. But also we all have to respect that we're humans. We have lives outside of work. And if I leave you accountable for how you're going to get your job done and how you're going to manage yourself to take care of yourself, it is surprising how we can protect those values even in those really, really hard moments.
Yeah, I like that. Do you find it hard to protect those values? I find it somewhat easier to protect values internally at times than externally. And what I mean by that is making a mistake that's going to impact the client, not just something inside your own organization, right? What does that look like? Like, how do you navigate that with your staff to be able to say, hey, city of X or town of X, we're not going to beat the deadline. We made a mistake. The calculations weren't right. How do you encourage that?
The line that we use is we work with communities versus for communities. So if you have done a really good job of collaborating with your client through an entire process, everyone's aware of some of the limitations.
Yeah.
So as humans, sometimes we're afraid to share some of the learnings we've had along the way. And what I have learned in my career, that when you're taking on risk, especially in these scenarios with the public, you just need to be really open and upfront about it. Like, we're pretty sure this is going to take us 8 weeks to do, but we've never done it before. So we're going to check in with you really regularly. When we get to a deadline that's really pushing, we're going to be honest, you know what? We're not really proud of this product that's going out the door right now. We don't think it's going to meet your needs. We're going to need another week to do it.
Sure.
And often I'm going to be asking for more money, which is also that like, what? And I'm like, we're making a change to the benefit of the client. But a lot of times we're afraid to have that type of honest conversation with our clients. They're often just humans, most of them, and they really see that they don't want to make you work the weekend because of your family needs you in the middle of summer. They're like, you know what? Next Thursday's fine, but that's it, Jen, because then I'm going to get in trouble, right? So I also call that from my clients, like, be honest with me what you really need. Like, when's this going to be a problem for you? And maybe there's some interim solution I can offer. So I also need to meet their needs. And if I'm really honest and transparent about it, they're usually pretty supportive in meeting ours. And if they're not, they might be the wrong client for Magna. And we've had to make that choice a couple times too.
Yeah, you end up sometimes having to walk away. And that's an interesting thought too, is, when you talk culture and values, it isn't necessarily about just who works for you. It's who you work for as well, right? And sometimes there can be a significant misalignment there. And then, within your environment, now, you've got the project in front of the client, they're happy with it. Now you introduce another third party because you're now going to be the liaison between the client and someone like me who's going to be the contractor, right?
Yeah.
And we're always easy to get along with, for the record.
I'm looking forward to it, Randy.
Oh yeah, one day. Yeah. And so, now as a liaison in those relationships, once again, your staff are going to be challenged, right? Because I often go into these contracting consultants and clients in the areas we work in. I think over the years, I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, has always been a very conflict-ridden relationship. Historically, contractors have a reputation at looking to be able to exploit certain things in the process, and then at the same time that creates this tension. And then at the same side, sometimes we always feel like a contractor. It's like, well, I'm not wrong all the time. I gotta give me a win here and there, right? What is that world looking like right now for you? Like as a collaborative engineering firm, relationship-based engineering firm, are you finding ways within that three-way relationship to make it work?
Yeah, and in a way, I get asked this a lot. Like, how are proposals for you guys? And I avoid them like the plague. I way prefer to work through relationships with clients. And so if we have to go to public bid, because it's common in our spaces, I already know ahead of time whether we're going to be qualified for that bid or not. Doesn't always mean that we're going to get it 100%, but we're not going to go for something when we know that we're just, I need to get 3 numbers and Magna's one of them.
Yeah.
So really careful about that. That's on our side, but I also will do the same thing on our contractor side. I actually don't want to be surprised by a contractor who's going to build this innovative facility that we've designed. So I will usually engage with all the contractors that I think are going to be qualified to bid on the projects that we're doing. And then through that process, give them the opportunity that if they're like, Jen, I don't want to be one of your 3 bids, I'm like, thank you for being honest, no problem, because I need it to be competitive. And if you really think you can do it, there are 3 other people bidding against you, but I think all of you are qualified. Or it might be that I'm only ever engaging with one contractor, we get 8 random bids into a process, then the client comes and asks me, I'm like, I don't know who these contractors are. No one's reached out to us. No one's looked for further information. So I'm going to be recommending the contractor that I've already built a relationship with because, like we said, building that trust in these projects is it's the easiest way to success.
Trust is the biggest building block to a successful project. There's no question. Just that collaborative project mentality, knowing that you're never going to be right all the time, you're never going to be wrong all the time. But at the end of the day, if you can get to the end of it and everybody walks away with a good project, we all look good, right? So, that's good. Let's go back to your team a minute, because that's really where I want to spend most of the time today. Just knowing, back at CTAC, that was one of my most enjoyable things throughout the 4 days out there, was talking about culture and leadership and everything else. When you're building your team, obviously culture is a big component of who you're looking for in individuals as you're filling it out. Other than that technical mindset and technical skill set that is critical, how do you filter out the cultural side of things? What does that process look like? Because I think a lot of businesses, they run the ads on Indeed and we go through this and then we all get frustrated where it's like, oh my gosh, there's nobody to get out there. What are you doing creatively to get around that?
Well, we do this discussion around a fit interview. It's not my term. It's been around for a bit, but it's really about getting to know a person beyond what's on their resume. I used to have one of my partners used to run these interviews with me, and there'd be 4 of us in there, and he was so good at asking questions that made the rest of us feel uncomfortable. Like, where did you go to junior high? And they're like, oh, what do you mean? Right?
Why does that matter?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, did you need that on my resume? No, just curious. Did you have any hobbies when you were in junior high? And they're just, what? And then you get them talking about their hobbies or the lack of hobbies, then you start talking about high school, and we're like 20 minutes into an interview, and all that we've really learned about this person is where they came from, what they're about, who were they as a teenager, right? How did they plan their future and their life? So before you've even gotten into, okay, sure, you were in engineering for 10 years, that's great, but who are you as a person? And I'll often say on LinkedIn, that person's had a lot of jobs. I'm like, ooh, that's who I want to talk to, right? Like, what is it about where they've been that they're having a hard time finding their place?
Right.
Because those kind of misfits fit in really well in Magna.
That's so interesting because you just made me laugh with your little, ooh, I want to talk to that person, right? Because you're absolutely right. That would 100%, that would be the person who'd be like, yeah, I'm steering away from that one, right? But you're right. Just because they're a misfit, maybe they just haven't found the right fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
exactly.
And then Magna, you found, has, I guess, I hope your team's not listening. You have a bunch of misfits, is what I'm hearing.
We call ourselves misfits all the time. I was the first misfit. I tried to fit into the corporate world. It didn't work. I was such a misfit over there.
Yeah. Well, I could see it for sure. I know enough of the engineers in the corporate world. You're not, you're not what I would typically see in that environment. So, so when you go through that first step, I just want to help the audience a little bit, like understand the intentionality behind hiring for culture, right? So it isn't just that first little sit down with those awkward questions about what you did in junior high. Like, there's a saying out there, hire slow, fire fast, right? How long, when you're hiring a key position, what does that look like? Like, how long does that typically take? I know it can change, but.
It does. And I like the way that you said key position, because it's true. A young EIT, new graduate coming out, it's possible I can hire them over my first coffee. And my team loves, this is my eye roll, loves when I do that, walk upstairs, I just had this great coffee. I offered someone a job. They're like, what?
They really trust your instincts, right?
Exactly. Listen, it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about those key hires, I'll often tell them I'm expecting 3 to 6 months. And I actually often like to meet their family, and I'd like them to meet my family. So we're talking about higher level key roles, especially at Magna when we're such a culture-based organization. If you're coming in as a management level, or now I've started hiring director levels, I want to make sure that your family understands the commitment you're making to our organization. And it's not so that I can make you work more hours, but it's so that you can care about what your partner or family member is doing as much as we care about it. And they're often really surprised by that. And I was like, you're going to learn a lot about me watching how I interact with my family also.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the type of relationship we're getting into with key players. Like we talk about, especially ownership, once you get to a point where you're taking on actual partners and owners, I mean, it's a marriage, right? Like there's going to be hard and good. You got to know who you're working with, right?
Well, yeah, it is. It's, you're working with your spouse, you're working with your sibling, however you want to frame that, right? And making a lot of impactful, important decisions, that impact more than just the people that are in that room. But tension's good, right? Because you're not, I'm also going to guess you're not always looking for the one size fits all.
No, rarely actually.
Right.
And I think part of when I say one size fit, when you ask that question about one size fits all, I think it's a mistake for any of us to believe that we are a one size fits all. So there's a lot of things I'm good at. Like are you familiar with traction? You were talking about the visionary.
Yeah. I'm actually listening to Rocket Fuel for about the 4th time right now. So yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So whenever I do that assessment, believe it or not, and because you do know me a little bit, I actually get equal marks on integrator and visionary.
You do. So you're the unique. You're the unicorn.
Well, except for I'm not good at everything. Right. So when I do both of those jobs, they both suffer. And I've learned that. So it's possible for me to come in and I can understand the integrator role, but I am much better and takes way less energy for me to do the visionary role. And my company really benefits from me being in that visionary role. So I've really had to learn that, actually, I'm going to put my energy where it needs to be. I'm going to let the other integrators in my life do that job. I mean, the nice thing is I can answer their hard questions because a big part of my brain thinks like an integrator. But it really, for me, it's like, what are you the best at? Like, just lean into what you're the best at. And everything else, honestly, is it just a distraction from doing the really, really good thing that you're the best at?
Yeah, that's a big thing. Like whether it's Gino Wickman, Jim Collins, getting in the right seat on the bus, in the right seat, the right people. It really does, and I firmly believe work in your areas of strength. Right? We all have things, and when I say areas of strength, it's those things that give you energy, those things that fill your cup, if you want to call it. Right? And I think we're often trained to. And one of my favorite sayings is, you want to get better at the things you're not good at. And I'm like, no, you don't. You want to get excellent at the things you are great at already. Find somebody else to do the things you're not good at. And I think as leadership teams, we've seen huge changes around here with that. Like we're right in the middle of rolling out EOS right now. And it's so much fun because the book, it's like you keep listening to it, and I'm like you, like I'm sitting in both seats. I got the integrator, I got the visionary. I love the visionary. It's where I get all my energy from. Right? I often joke with Nora in the office. It's like, I'm all I do is run around starting fires, and I either let them put them out or fan the flames. And but finding that integrator, finding that relationship can be a challenging thing. So have you had success with that? Finding that yin to your yang?
Yeah, you're asking me about hiring. It fits into this story. In 2018, in March, is when I had a lot of contractors between 2016 and 18. One of those contractors became my second employee, but my first employee was a friend of mine that I had worked with in the municipal space. And it was actually another friend of ours that was like, you need to go talk to Jesse. And you've met Jesse Letizia.
Yep.
Who works for me. And we sat across the table from each other, and I was like, oh my gosh, Jesse, you're going to be able to do everything I don't want to do. And she's like, yeah, and I am never setting foot in sales ever, right? And she was my first employee, and she came with she actually has her master's in design and a GIS background. At the time, she'd been managing a team in imagery. So lots of good experience, but what she really loved to do was create processes. And she's like, it's not the processes, it's the organizational integration. And it was exactly what I needed someone to do. So she just, every time I had a task, she's like, let me make that better. Let me make that better. Right? And
it's so funny when you, I often I have somebody like that too in the office, where it's like, his statement is, there can be a challenge in fun. And all he ever says is, Randy, it's just putting a puzzle together. That's all it is. I got a puzzle. And I'm going to do my best to make all the pieces fit. It's such a unique mindset. And I feel like I used to be like that, but now I'm just like, no, I'm having fun over here, but it's a different kind of fun. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and coming full circle actually to the other team member of mine that you have met.
Yes.
So Anna Davison was my first senior level operations hire. And in that case, I actually went out to the market after, we had maybe 30 employees. And I'm like, I just need someone who can carry big picture help. So, Jesse's been carrying the inside of the organization, doing a great job of it. But I needed someone who could stand beside me as almost like an engineering manager. She was coming across with an MBA. And those are hard to find in a space where they've got, 10 plus years experience. And they don't want to walk into an upstart company, especially as an engineer, and not know how to do the work that we do. So I was really, it was, I would say when someone's lucky, I'm always like, My first question is, what have you been doing, taking steps to get to that lucky position?
Exactly. Yeah. Lucky has a lot of work behind it. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that happened with Anna is we had decided last year to really get our name out there. It was our year of blossoming. So it was just as many awards as we could possibly get for our project. And one of the things that came about is everyone loved that I was a female leader of an engineering company. So some of those awards, we were like, well, they're not really going to build us clients, but I didn't realize the other side that they did is they exposed me to this group of leaders that were looking for a new type of organization. And Anna was one of them. And she reached out saying, tell me more about what you've built. Because that's actually something that me, at this time in my career, would really like to help lead in. And so that was actually how I ended up finding that hire. And it is how we find now our highest level leaders is not talking maybe about what we do at Magna, but how we do it. And that's been really fun, attracting that kind of higher level. And she happens to have we're integrator and visionary also, but unlike me who loves the visionary more, she just happens to get more energy from the integrator piece. So we can really trade each other off, which is really nice.
Yeah, that is awesome. What do you do? So with that key leadership team, obviously you've read Traction. I'm sure you've read all the other Wickman books. What do you do to encourage continual professional development within your team?
Well, I'll add another book on the pile, which we really kind of dove into this year, was the Patrick Lencioni book. And talking about trust is the biggest thing, like really being able to have open, honest conversations with each other. So as a leadership team, actually just yesterday, we did a strategic planning session where it was actually Jason that you met at CTAC ran a process for us, linking together DISC assessment, a little bit of Strengths Finder, and EQ, emotional intelligence. So we put the three of them together, we all did assessments, and then we sat in a room and we talked about how we're all different. And then we could talk about the gaps that we had on our team. So what were we missing to us as a 9-person team? What blind spots did we have? A really interesting anecdote is Anna and I have the same blind spot to constructive criticism. So her and I love constructive criticism. Like, please tell me the things that I can work on. This is great.
Okay.
Right? And both of us are like, I can be curious about this. I'm going to really take this back. You go into these sessions and they're like, that is a major blind spot for two leaders.
Right.
And Jesse sitting next to us is like, not everybody wants to hear constructive criticism all the time.
No, in fact, we'd prefer not to.
It's those types of times talking about who we are, how we think. I think that's really how, as a leadership team, we've been able to really kind of build and grow closer, understand the culture, buy into it, even though we're all different people, but we're kind of aligned in the same goal. So a lot of that type of personality development in our strategic planning has been really key.
Yeah, and so Patrick Lencioni, you're talking about the 5 dysfunctions?
5 dysfunctions.
Yeah, I'm assuming. Yeah, okay. So, and again, it's funny. You're aligned with people when all of a sudden you start going through books. It's like, yeah. We did the 5 dysfunctions here last winter. I'm a huge Patrick Lencioni fan. Got the good fortune of seeing him speak a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And that was like the moment. It's like, this guy has such insane energy, right? And I love his books because, if you read any of them, they're all fable-based, right? So it's like you're just following the story, but then he ties it all in at the end. And I don't know if you've read the CEO one. But if you read that, I'm sure it's like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's me. And it's funny. It's these enlightening moments, right? So do you do a lot of that just in-house, or do you look for opportunities to get out of house? Like, there's a big movement now about, when you have these big strategic days, get out of the office, go somewhere, like book a room.
Yeah, we always do them offsite.
You do,
every
right?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, even yesterday, it was just going to be a day. So we just went downtown Calgary. But our November, we do a big push in November. We go away, we rent a hotel. I do a day of it. We do big dinner together. We play games all night together. Everyone crashes in the hotel. The next morning we have breakfast, do a bit of a cleanup of the things that we covered. And yeah.
That's super
it's
cool.
Also, outside, you get to know each other better.
Sure you do.
Weirdly. No, the world's not pulling on you. So
yeah, well, and I think that's it. The minute you're in house, it's like there's always a reason somebody's got their phone going off or someone's knocking on the door. There's 1,000 reasons where you're distracted. That's for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. CTAC West. So I was newly introduced to that this year. I can't actually remember, and I meant to write it down before we started here, what it actually stands for. But you got involved in this quite a while ago, right? Yeah. So what is CTAC, and what was it to you, and what is it to you today?
Awesome. So it's the Canadian Environmental Technology Acceleration Center, actually, the C.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
But really, Joe Lucas, who really started it, almost 30 years ago now, was actually about the idea of helping out environmentally driven technology companies, kind of in the oil and gas sector at the time. He was part of early kind of sulfur emissions detection type of work. And he wanted to create a space where he could get everybody together. And the evolution of it over that period of time, I joined about 5 years ago. Actually, I started in COVID because I missed the first one I was supposed to go to, the first conference, because it was in COVID. So they ended up as the only one that they've ever actually missed. And it has really evolved into this place for mentors and entrepreneurs to come together, and those entrepreneurs to evolve into mentors and come back and help the next journey of entrepreneurs. And after 30 years, you've got quite a collection of talent in those mentors. Even like for me, I started as the entrepreneur, just coming in the door. For the first couple of years, that's the role I wanted, sat sitting at the tables. And then the last couple of years, it's been really fun to be on the mentorship side.
Sure. Yeah, that's, it was so interesting having you there as my mentor. And I felt very fortunate, to have you there as my mentor. There's no question we had the best group. But it was very enlightening. I had only been owning grassroots landscaping for 5 years. And I wasn't there for it. I was there for, the startup side of Grow. But there were so many amazing takeaways from it. And you're sitting in this room with these people that are just at so many different stages. And it's so invigorating and honestly intense. Like tell the people what a day in the life of SeaTac West looks like. Well,
to start with, you have to walk at 6 a.m. because all of us need to have an early routine because that's how we survive as CEOs. And I really love that they do that. Even though not everyone joins, I think the idea of setting that time aside to either meditate in the mountains or for us is walk around and try to grab a coffee. And then, digging into your business, the things that you don't get to do all day long, doing it beside others who are doing it, which is always the best way. And then socializing, networking at the end of the day, understanding the importance of being a CEO and maybe learning a bit around your industry, the trends, the people that are out there. And you never know who you're going to talk to each night at SeaTac. But I always say, I don't know if we measured it by the number of hours we get at SeaTac every year. The less you get, the more you got out of it. But I definitely have to take that next weekend off. You had a bit of an interesting journey to get there too. But I did not make it to any of the late night or the early morning. There's stories behind that. But because you had just flown in from France, I do believe, from Paris. Japan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Japan. Yeah.
The other direction. Yeah, no, I had the 2 days of jet lag that I was working through on that side of it. So
you survived it. You did well. I'll say that. So, but I know usually by about 9:30 after one drink, I'm like, I'm checking out. That's it for me.
Well, and I think when you ask me about SeaTac, I think the biggest thing that I like to get across. So people are like, why do you go to SeaTac? Why are you part of this organization, Jen? The thing is when we're leaders in organizations, it kind of comes back to the earlier part of our conversation. We're always trying to figure out how to put out all the fires. Like that's what our jobs are. And to be able to take that break in a really intensive way for like 4.5 days to just think about your business, how you got here, what the state you're in, where you're going with it, being able to look around and ask 50 other people, did they have to go through this? How did they go through it? Getting all those ideas. And we just don't have that opportunity every day. It is really hard to eke out a little bit of time throughout the other kind of 51 weeks of the year. So you really need this 1 week to be able to take that time and set it aside. And that's why I keep going. Even if I'm a mentor, I spend all that time talking about Magna, where we're going to be going, whichever seat I'm sitting in at SeaTac. I know it's good for the organization.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, that we become the average of the rooms that we put ourselves in, right? And putting ourselves around people that are walking similar journeys to we're walking, that have the same passions we have, right? You attending it for Magna originally compared to coming back as a mentor, I'm assuming you're still probably taking away a few really good nuggets, even as a mentor, just throughout your conversations and probably learning from some of the businesses that you're mentoring.
Oh, absolutely. And part of that is too, and we were talking about the different hiring, like the size of Magna, but it's all a big cycle. So as soon as we got over about 15 employees, I wasn't involved in anything. But that means that my leaders coming up in the organization are now me, right? They're having to deal with the things that I was dealing with years earlier. So a lot of me coming into this, we realized this year, I have a formal middle management team. I have never had a formal middle management team.
Does that give you indigestion?
Yes, actually very much. I think when we all realized it, it was like, oh no.
What just happened? We became a bureaucracy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we have to fight that, right? We've actually gotten big enough to be an incumbent. Oh no, there's some real fears about being an incumbent.
Yeah.
So exactly, Randy. Like honestly, everything that every young entrepreneur learns when they're on their own, to someone like me who's got 40, or someone talking to some of my advisory board members who have thousands of employees, we're constantly learning from each other because it's just a cycle.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's and if we aren't, learning, you're or growing, you're dying essentially, right?
Well, and remembering what it's like. So sometimes I'll talk to a new leader who's, mid-30s, really good at what they do, but never really had to oversee people. Well, just because I've been doing it for 10 years and they're doing it in their first year, right? It's really hard for me to speak to them if I'm not meeting with other entrepreneurs who are going through that same thing. So, we recommend books. Well, I can be like, you know what? I got introduced to my friend Randy. This is where they're about to launch a brand new technology. And that's what I'm expecting out of you in this organization.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk to him? I haven't done that in a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. Like connecting the dots, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you opened yourself up to that mentorship opportunity at SeaTac. I have a pretty good feeling you do quite a bit of that outside of that 1 week a year as well. So what does mentorship from Jen look like in the other 51 weeks a year?
Well, it starts with never saying no, which is funny because I know you and I have been trying to chase each other around this province, but I'm here today. So that was a good sign.
There we go.
But I've always said that I don't know what I'm missing. So I'll give anybody a coffee, right? Like it's really awesome because our office in Inglewood is surrounded by 3 really nice coffee places. So I will always give a 30-minute call to anyone. And that's someone who's like 17 years old trying to figure out what they're doing with their life. They're an engineering student trying to figure out which discipline they're trying to do. They've been in the environmental space for 20 years, not being able to figure out where they end up. Come talk to me. We've got like 6 different types of environmental people. Small business owners who are like, well, how did you do it in the beginning? Or people are at my level going, what are you doing now? What's your HR program look like, right? And it's a two-way street. In 30 minutes, what we learn from each other is incredible. So I get huge value from offering that time. And kind of like my fit interviews, it's just 30 minutes of who are you? What are you about?
Yeah.
And them asking me the same question. Who are you? What are you about?
Well, and I find them so enjoyable. I've been asked a few times now for stuff like that in a mentorship capacity. And often that 30 minutes turns into 2 hours really easily, right?
Yeah, and I'll always say, like, this is the first 30. If there's something we need to talk about, let's do it again, right? So I think it's saying yes in the first stage because Anna Davison, she just reached out randomly after seeing me speak at an award thing. Can I just talk to you for 15 minutes about leadership? I had no idea who she was. She sat down for 10 minutes and I was like, oh, so we're going to enter the 3 to 6 month leadership job offer process.
It's just crazy, right? But it's opening yourself up to that. It's not shying away from those relationship building opportunities that exist every single day that I think a lot of us, or a lot of people do put blinders on and just prefer to stay in their lane. That's for sure. Okay. I want to ask you a good question here. And I want your feedback on a quote. You've read Simon Sinek? Yes. So the quote is this: leadership is not about being in charge. It is about taking charge of those in your charge. So leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. What does that mean to you? So
last summer, when Anna was coming on, who was going to be the first person to really share that ball of this most senior leadership role. And we were talking about how that might look, and I was pulling Jessie in because Jessie fills a lot of gaps for me inside the organization. And I said that there's 3 things that Jen, so that kind of founder kind of issue. So the culture of Jen at Magna is we're going to try any crazy thing in front of us. So, and it's going to happen all the time. We're going to make sure that our bills are always paid, that I am crazy around, almost to a scarcity mindset around how we pay bills. I joke I started engineering this company on $1 because I refused to do it not in the black. So we're going to do every crazy thing. We're going to always pay the bills. There'll always be money here to pay for your job, and you know there's going to be a future here no matter how big we are. And third, I am going to love you to death. And the reason all three are important is because if you have only two, so if you're going to do every crazy thing and pay the bills, then you're going to be probably a really successful narcissist in San Francisco, and you might own an electric car company. You are a
who do you speak
person.
of?
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're super crazy and you love your employees, what you should be doing is running a not-for-profit and going and doing amazing things in the world. And if you love your employees, but you're good at paying the bills, but you're not risking yourselves, you might be a family business. And that's great, but where's your growth coming in our future? So for me, I look at those three things and I imagine that we need all of them. And what Simon's talking about is that's protection. So when you love your employees, they believe you're watching out for them. When you're making sure that you're appropriately building a sustainable company, they know they can trust you to pay the bills when you're kind of making some of these crazy decisions. And they know, you're the one paying their mortgage. They got to know that they can trust that. And the third part is that when those big fires and big exciting things happen, they can trust you that you know how to mitigate risk properly. So I think that's the idea that I hear when I hear that statement, is you're providing this safety net for those people, those other leaders, those employees, to go do the most amazing things they can possibly do. My job is to provide that safety net in those three core areas.
Yeah, I love that. And, Jen's going to love you, right? Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't like that? So just quickly on that one, have you ever... I've probably been caught more one way than the other about... how do I put this? You love sometimes maybe a little bit more than you should, right? Because it can cause us, for those that are programmed that way, to often. I was just talking to a gentleman this morning about it. You end up with a little bit of rose-colored glasses. You start to accept maybe some things that maybe you shouldn't. And I know there's like accountability thing. How do you how do you do it? It's hard.
Well, there's a really great podcast I listened to years ago, and it was, I think, Patty McCord, I think it is, from Netflix. And her discussion is how to fire well. So if you ask my team, when we talk about how fast I fire, it's within 24 hours. So the idea is, I firmly believe that if you're not finding success at Magna, it's because it's the wrong place for you to find success. And if I care about you the way that I've said that I do, holding on to you in this position that you're not succeeding at is the worst thing that I could do for you. So I am pretty close to the employees that have left Magna, the ones that have left on because they decided it wasn't the place for them. And I'm super supportive that if you can't find success here, you might be able to find success others, whether it was your choice or my choice. So that's a big thing. So I use those three same metrics. If I care about them, then they might need to either go or be refined to help them find success. We work to provide really incredible solutions for the world, and we can't waste value and money on someone that isn't aligned with that purpose. So being accountable is an important part of our values, really, really important. And I'm not being accountable if I'm allowing a team member that's not being able to meet those needs to continue to be part of the team. Sometimes, talking about good to great, sometimes it's just wrong seat, right bus.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? So absolutely. They're just not where they should be. All
good. Yeah. Right. But if it's the wrong bus, it's the wrong bus.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No.
Right?
And that's the burden. Element. That's the burden we bear as business owners and leaders, right? Those decisions are not meant to be easy. They can take a lot out of us as a person, but often both parties know this is the right path. I have a line. It's like, I'm going to free up your future. Right.
Yeah. It's a great line.
And it's true, and not many times do you ever look back on something where it's like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Normally it's, it's good it happened, probably should have happened sooner. And they probably would say the same thing. And I love being able to look down the road and you do see them find success. I tell all my staff here, not likely you're going to be here forever. I hope you end up leaving better than you came. That's my goal. Yeah. So hopefully, because you're developing the next generation. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that. Like, I only have 40 employees, but when you take the world of Magna, there's like probably a couple hundred out there, right? And they are my voice out there. They are marketing sales. Like, if I treated them well and it was the right decision for them and us, then they're going to leave knowing that it was the right decision. So, and I was going to say and the last part of all this is when we're in a really caring, psychological, safe company. I remember I had to let an employee go that was just really close to the organization. She was really close to me. It was a tough one. And someone came up to me after and said, or it wasn't me, actually came up to one of my leaders and said, do you think Jen would fire me if I was doing a bad job? And I actually looked at the leader. I was like, oh no, yes, that is how you might get exited out of this organization. Now, failure is different. Space for creativity, and that's why I said that the third metric of risk taking and being accountable to doing something different. That is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is if you're not meeting the expectations of your job, we either have to move you to a new seat or we have to identify whether this is the right bus. But yeah, and so when we talk about the importance of being psychological safe, allowing people to be themselves, we have to have the other part of it, that we have to all be committed to the same vision. I don't know if you've seen F1, the movie.
No, I haven't. You just watched it because Brad Pitt's in it. Come on now.
Well, I mean, he ages well. But I will say that it is one of my favorite, like, it's going to go on my list of books you should read. It'll be movies you should see as a leader, like whatever, Hollywood glamour, all those different kinds of things. But there's this commitment to team that comes through in the movie, that it doesn't matter who you are. They have to say, like, shave off 7 seconds. Well, it doesn't matter if you're changing a tire, if you're designing the helmet, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Everybody cuts off a little bit of a second and they sum together to make the whole 7 seconds. And it was just this idea that everyone is important and also everyone has to pull. So if everyone really likes someone, but they're not pulling, they're not moving towards that, then it's like, great, we can meet for friends out in the world, but this team isn't going to win with you part of it. And in that case, they had to win a race. For us, it's about winning the minds to the importance of nature-based solutions in the world. And if we're not all going that way, well, we're not going to meet our big, hairy, audacious goal to change the world. And I need you to go do that where you can. So
yeah, everyone's got to pull the rope the same direction, right? Yeah. Well, that's good. Now I'm going to go watch that movie. To be honest, I'm a big Brad Pitt fan ever since A River Runs Through It. So can't go wrong with it, right? Jen, last question I want to ask you. You're busy. You definitely don't work a 4-day week, even though you may come across saying that you do. What do you do to recharge? Like, what gives you energy outside of the workspace?
Your set of questions started with my girls. Yeah. I know they were a quick myth in there, but honestly, I have 2 beautiful daughters, 14 and 18 now, and it's playing board games. Like, I can give you the list of, I do meditate, I do read books, sure. I happen to live near water, and they're all beautiful things. But really, when I can get out of my head and into the life of my family, and just like, we're about to head out on an RV trip across Eastern Canada in a couple weeks, and I'm so excited.
Just the 3 of you?
Well, and David.
Oh, okay.
We have a lovely added addition partner that joined the pack, I guess, about 8 years ago now. Nice. So we're all going to go together.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's just spending that time when in my pack is that's the best thing that I do. So I have to make time for it.
There you go. That's the recharge.
And they're busy and I'm busy. Sometimes it's tough.
Next movie you need to watch is RV, Robin Williams. Go around it.
Will do.
There you go. Jen, I want to thank you for your time today. It's always fun to connect. It honestly, it feels like we've known each other way longer than like 3 months. And I know you're going to be back on here, and I look forward to catching up way more in the near future here.
Oh, fantastic, Randy. And I feel the same way. Thank you so much for the invitation.
All right. Thanks, Jen.